set up a standardized connection that said, hey, in order to use the lowest possible output quality, Polycom has basically a codec that allows it to kind of filter, monitor that, and it'll actually constantly throttle that down or up based on the quality of your connection. So if you're on a really kind of sporadic connecting type of call, maybe you have low cell phone coverage, or you're just on connected Wi-Fi, you're in a Panera, I'm just saying as an example, everybody's on it. The quality is going to be kind of poor because it's being consumed, it's basically being overrun. It'll adjust to that. And that's one of the things we want to look at is with healthcare, you can't compromise to have it be sporadic. So we look at something that one can securely connect two calls or multiple parties, but also that it's going to be consistent. The back end with Polycom, globally, it's called a CDN. So the back end Polycom network is global. You've got it's multi-home, meaning you could be in Asia. It's Asia data centers. It's connected closest there. So if you're in like Amazon, for example, anytime you go to Amazon.com, well, there's users in the U.S., there's users globally. They don't connect all the way down to California to connect to an Amazon server. They connect in the region they're closest to. It's caching. So a lot of larger networks that put in the infrastructure investment will use CDN, which allows them to connect fast, reliable, and efficient in that region they're at. And so Polycom does the same. Polycom is a global partner with a lot of different various data centers. Typically, your top threes, like level threes, your NTT, which is a more of a, you'll see that connection a lot of in your Asian markets, as well as Russia, European Union. But you'll get a lot of quality calls with Polycom. Very often we run into a scenario where it just doesn't work. I mean, it's the nice thing about it, it's reliable. But again, this is just one piece of it. I mean, you're looking at infrastructure pieces that are for mobile. Polycom has a huge other offering that we support. We install that, it's with all those other features that you might use for sharing content. The nice thing about Polycom is even with this feature set here, it will allow you actually to share and submit documents. So if you want to do content sharing, you can actually share content securely. So if you wanted to show, maybe some type of imaging, it does not have the ability to, import like an image from a CT or an X-ray. You could obviously take the camera and show it, but you can also, you have a way of doing some digital translation of that. You can send that securely. You mentioned email earlier, ma'am, and one of the things you want to do is you always have to encapsulate that as email. So when I've come into organizations who do a lot of heavy email, anytime there's a HIPAA violation, as you know, you have to notify, put that down in the books. So email, you have to have secure translations of that. It's sent secure, it's then authenticated, decrypted on the other side, and it's opened up and you can allow to see that. That's why today faxes is still, unfortunately, it's still pretty secure because you can't really intercept it, it's analog. Now you get into digital copying with analog. You can get into some secure transactions, but then it's like, where do you save it? With Polycom, you can record these calls too. You can record them, you can store them electronically, it's safe. There's audit trails to show you can log in and all that. So it's meets all the certifications data center wise, SOC compliant and so forth, SAS 316. It's basically the issues you're going to run into is, do you have the hardware to support it? And that's kind of what's nice about it is as long as you have devices that have at least maybe a webcam built into it, then you can utilize what you have on hand, but you can also obviously get new hardware, which sometimes is the better way to go. So you have hardware that's available if you can do it, plan in motion. Right? For an emergency, this is hardware we use, it's there for that purpose, but a lot of times things aren't planned, and you have to be ready for that. And so what's nice about this technology is it'll allow you to adapt. So if you roll it out into simply BYOD as an initiative with a lot of companies, which is bring your own device. How do you control that from a HIPAA standpoint? A lot of times there's software you'll put on a device called MDM, Mobile Device Management. And what it allows you to do is, I'm going to put a little container on your device, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone. I'm going to give you access to all the email and the access to resources that are company owned. And then from there, you can install applications like this. And that way, it's still controlled and it's easy to manage it.
So this MDM, basically, it's that license. I mean, do you have to have a license for the MDM?
So MDM is separate. it's not only a separate, there's products out there for MDM, it's more of a process. So the reason it's important is because as you get into organizations, small, medium, large, you know, sometimes your IT departments, unfortunately, they're a cost center at the end of the day. You know, they're their largest budget, typically. As companies use more and more technology to leverage automation, you'll see that to control it all and to manage things, it can get cumbersome. So if you have devices that you can push out and automate things you might want to share with your employees, then MDM as a process is important. And yes, there's software that you would, or services you buy, it's usually per seat license. So for every person, you might hire, you know, a company to say, hey, I want to look at a product, and they'll say, yeah, it's a per seat license. This VAS service, for example, it starts off, now there's state level pricing as well, but just retail, it's $3,000 a year. That's a 5-seat license. But the nice thing is, video conferencing, no matter who you use, they're going to charge you. If it's not using your own on-premise, you use some type of cloud offering, just like audio conferencing, they charge you per minute, or you might buy a rate plan. Video is the same thing, it's using data, so it's bandwidth. But really that's going to be called price per seat. That way you get the features of content sharing, audio, and you can do audio only bridging too. Out of that, video is obviously how it's used.
So if I'm a doctor and I have the MDM on my phone, and I get a call, I mean, basically this laptop, either a Mac or Microsoft or whatever.
Sure.
That I could see the patient that way.
Yeah, so let me just clarify. So the MDM is more or less the process of pushing things to these. You can manually install it. So basically, when you set up a scheduled conference call, let's say, you can do it on demand or you can schedule it. And it can come in through an email, which will give you the links. Probably many of you can join a conference call sometime through an email, whether maybe via WebEx or a GoToMeeting or something. This works the same way. You'll get a set of instructions. Actually, it looks just like this. So this is an email that you would typically see. So that's the format that you would actually get. It's no different than a conference call.
So you're basically logging into a bridge.
It is a video bridge, yep. Since it's a VAS, it's hosted in the back end, like it sits in Polycom. So you can still use your standard codecs, which are the endpoints you can see in a typical conference room. But the nice thing about this is it uses, again, just kind of the built-in native cameras that are in your webcam or mobile device. So one of the things you want to look at too is, you can easily get into what you asked. You just push this out, join a call. You can join a call on ad hoc. A lot of times, if you have a static entry, meaning, let's say you have a location like this building, you might have a specific point, let's say like a contact from your contacts that says, hey, here's the phone number, here's your address, email address for the facility. Well, you might have the same for video location. So you would save that in your contacts, and again, you can roll that out as an install app, so you would have those kind of built in, so you'd always know where to call. Or you could say, hey, there's a physician in the area, maybe that physician's never really dialed into this location, but you can send him through a text, hey, put this in your app, and they can dial in that way. So it's for ad hoc, or you can have it set up to where they can join a call at scheduled time, or you can call it. Very similar to what most video conference rooms, you'll have a bridge that dials out to those endpoints at the time.
This is if you have electricity, right?
What's that?
This is if you have electricity.
Well, that's the nice thing. So you don't have to worry about the infrastructure on the back end having electricity. So, for example, in 2009, I believe, the tsunami hit in Japan. So at the time, I was working on a new design for Honda North America. And so when the tsunami hit, there was a rolling blackout for one in Japan. And nothing was functioning. Every 6 hours, you'd have power at one segment of the island. We were able to use video conferencing to be able to actually show what the sites looked like at the time. Data centers are typically really secure buildings. There was pictures we had, seen from somebody just holding a codec that had a generator. I mean, they were trying to be creative, and it showed, the ceiling tiles broken down, server racks, which are typically the time it's fully loaded, there's several thousand pounds. Toppled over on the side, and there's water 2 feet high. You know, you can do a lot of damage very easily with natural disasters, you know, in terms of like infrastructure. So the nice thing is Polycom, the infrastructure, it's hosted in their data centers. So all you need is a device that's got battery power. So, you know, obviously I've had these on for a couple hours. Typical Mac, you might get 8 hours of battery life. It's a little longer because it's a little bit leaner. Cell phones, they're a little bit better.
But they do run, they do.
You're right, they do. And so that's what you have, just like anything else, whether you have any other type of device, you're gonna have power backup procedures, whether it's battery packs, generator, electricity. The nice thing is, I don't need to worry about typically these devices. They're natively set up to not have to worry about power unless you need to charge it. Which in that case, you can have batteries that are standby. Or, you know, mobile devices, I have a tendency of, my phones only last like a year and a half because I use them pretty hard in terms of battery. So you get one of those USB battery packs, you keep it with it and charge it. You get out of the habit of charging the battery pack, doesn't do any good, right? Because you might as well as well. So, but at the end of the day, the nice thing is it's agnostic to software to hardware. So you can put the software, download it for free, and then you're using the bridging service in the back end. And, you know, so you use existing hardware.
And that's what your company sells? I'm still confused about all this.
So as a solutions group, what we do is we have partnered with certain agencies, VARs basically, as you'll hear most generally speaking. A value-added reseller, you'll have a lot of those out in the field. We are a company that both in-house has products in terms of partnering with Polycom to provide services that we prepackage. There's other services we bring into the VAS in terms of management. We are the boots on the ground per se, but not just with video. We do voice, telephony. We're Cisco partners, so we also work with Jabber. And
I don't know what it is.
so Jabber is an instant messaging platform. Most of the time, you're not going to see it unless you're enterprise. I don't know if you use it at Ohio State. You guys are probably
We use Cisco. We don't use Jabber a whole lot.
using Link.
Is it a squirrel mail or something?
Jabber can be used for instant chat messaging.
I don't know what it
You can
was.
use
It didn't
for
work very well.
Other avenues as well, but we use Blue Jeans as well.
Okay, yeah. So Blue Jeans is another partner of most video conferencing. The world kind of big three as you hear always in the auto world: Chevy, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge. Blue Jeans, Cisco, Polycom are pretty much top three that are out there. You'll hear a lot of companies going to Office 365, which means they're getting their hosted email as well as Office Link all integrated. Well, Skype just bought Link in terms of adopting it. So now you're getting a Skype for business. You're starting to see a lot of rollouts. Excuse me, rollouts for that. But the big thing you're going to see is, Link. You might have a Link user, a Skype user. You can use Cisco Jabber, which is an instant messaging platform. Nice thing is, Polycom on the back end, you can actually dial out all those endpoints from those addresses. So whether it's an email address, phone number, or an IP address, or you can dial into an audio bridge using your phone number. So that's multi-connected.
So is it Polycom that has a relationship with the Ohio Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation for using the Cisco Jabber?
No, so we do as a partner of, so Polycom, we're a partner of theirs. We also have other agencies, like state agencies, that we, as IQS, who provide the services. We just happen to be using the technology that's powered by Polycom. Cisco Jabber is a separate entity. So you have Polycom and you got Cisco. So Cisco Jabber is a separate entity. Different type. It's the same type of technology, but it's a different vendor basically.
But is it, but you're using, I know the one psychiatrist who is using the Cisco Jabber.
Sure.
With the corrections.
Correct, yeah. And so, I know exactly what you're talking about too. So with that regard, you'll have, Jabber is it's the kind of platform that's being able to connect to an endpoint, which might be a Cisco endpoint, might be a Polycom. Most of the technology today, I mentioned earlier, is standards-based. Without boring you with the technical details, it just means there's a specific way devices communicate across the world on the internet. And so every one of these devices is standardized, communicates on standards. So Cisco can actually connect to Polycom and vice versa. The back end piece of it is the important part. So Cisco Jabber, typically, unless you're getting a hosted model of Cisco, because it's still kind of new, you'd have to have a lot of the back end servers and everything that does the hosting on premise. And so in a situation where you have a mass disaster and you're setting up sheltering, those services may not be available, whether it's power, whether it's local, fiber networking. Everybody knows, anybody there's like Columbus, 270 and 23 now, there's a larger 2-year project going on with, tunneling going in. I was director of infrastructure down there for a company a couple years ago, and after started, well, actually a year and a half ago, they started doing surveying for the fiber. One day, fiber gets cut. You can have all the redundancy in the world. If you don't have that physical cabling where it connects to all the other providers in the world, you're gonna be dead in the water. So, unless you do it with there's other ways to get backup system, whether it's wireless or microwave. But the idea is, you have something that's cloud-based. The incentive on that is, again, you gotta be connected to it to be able to touch it. You can have the same services like servers that host, say, video in your building. And if your internet's down, it doesn't really matter because it's all hosted in-house. You can have patient A and patient B seen in different rooms and have one physician connected both in the network. So it's kind of like making a room-to-room call. But if you have the need to talk externally, then you're going to need to have some type of way of having provisioning, which is why you would leverage the cloud. So right now there's no need for wires. As long as the cell towers are up, you can connect to a cloud-hosted service, and then your endpoints can talk to the internet and it gets to that cloud-hosted service.
So if I'm the doctor and I have Cisco Jabber on my phone, if I would be a patient, would I have to have the same thing on my phone, or would I have to?
So that's a good point. So that's the nice thing. Again, I mentioned it's kind of like agnostic to hardware. The nice thing about this is if you're a patient, you may not know when you're going to become sick. All of a sudden you become sick. You got to be kind of roll the punches, right? So the nice thing is you can get in touch with that patient, send them either a text message or email, and they have a computer at home that has a built-in webcam. Then all you need to do is send them that link. They click on it, it downloads kind of like a little piece of software that temporarily runs. No different than if you were watching a video on YouTube, or the difference is it shoots video back to the other end, which could be a doctor, a physician on the other side. Be able to see that patient within a couple minutes. So that's the nice thing is you can be flexible with that patient, and maybe they can't get access to a vehicle right into there, but they need to be seen, at least pre-screening. You can do that right there. Again, even though it's their computer, you can control the environment by securing that connection. Now, obviously,
Before you talk, you get, okay.
yeah, because that piece, the critical piece is that call will not connect unless that software is activated and installed, which is what makes that secure connection. So that's why you don't need to have a special type of software already installed. You get more features if you install the actual software.
And you have an app for that, or?
It's on every app store right now. Again, because this is powered by Polycom.
And what does the app say? What's its address?
So, like, if you go out to a iTunes, you download Polycom. Basically, I'll show you what it looks like. So you go to an app store. So this is just an app store for Apple. And I go search for, again, you can send this link directly through email, so they're not having to search for it. But if I go to, let's do a search for Polycom. Real Presence Mobile, that's the software. So you can send them to a link. You can send them to a link to download that. Now this is, again, for mobile. The PC or Mac laptops, same thing, they have their own app store. You would send
Right,
them,
I know.
or they can send them right to the Polycom download site.
You just push update and you come in.
Well, I actually need an update on that, but if it wasn't on your phone, it would say install. Good. So, same way with a laptop. again, if you're in Apple, you're gonna have a Mac store.
Yeah, I know, but this is different from the other presentation, that's what
It
I'm
is.
saying.
No, that's a good question. I just wanna make sure you understand that it's not really tied to a specific hardware. It's tied to
Yeah.
just, you can get the software on there.
But
Now-
with this program, you can use your own equipment, you don't necessarily.
Right, and that's the nice thing about it, because not every county or organization, medical or non-medical, have those budgets. Especially if you have grants. Sometimes those grant cycles, you know, you might have to deal with using the hardware you've got. Well, the nice thing is you don't have to compromise. You can still be able to utilize at least, if your machines are at least within 3 years, or probably, you know, older than 5 years, and they have a webcam built in, you're gonna be able to utilize this and be up and running without having to wait for hardware, which sometimes can be another life cycle that delays things.
But you'll have to be on the same software. How do you arrange that in a mass?
Well, again, good point, sir. So you asked, how do you arrange that in a mass emergency event?
Yeah.
So one of two ways. One, you're gonna have this pre-planned, right? So you're gonna have a building and facility plan that's got certain devices on hand for that. Or the other scenario would be, there's 3 parts to this. 2 would be, you already have, make sure every physician on hand or personnel has, if they have a BYOD environment where they have their own cell phone that they're using for business purposes, well, chances are nowadays, if they have email on that phone that's controlled by, you know, a hospital, especially in this case, it's not free reign for them. They're going to be managed by your IT department. So your IT department has a way of pushing those apps out to those devices. This would be one other way they can push that out. Or there's a third option. They may not actually have any hardware at all. If there's a mass emergency, you don't have that plan and that's all systemized and procedural. Well, as long as they have a device, there's a point of contact. Somebody's going to be able to reach out to a physician and say, hey, can you look at a patient? Well, they can coordinate that by saying, hey, here's a link, I'll text it to you, or if, you know, if your communications are up, you can download that right from there. And then you would have that software, and then you just need to have the address, which is all coordinated in either through text message or email. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, but I'm not sure how it gets coordinated.
Well, that's the thing. So because this is kind of a new procedure, right? With any new procedure, you have to kind of agree on how do you want to create a procedure. So you could have choice A, choice B, choice C from a technology perspective. None of those, I guarantee, none of those 3 are going to have the same
It's
procedure.
not gonna work, yeah.
So you're going to have to adopt that regardless. Even if you, let's say today we weren't meeting about technology, if we were to have a fire drill in this building and have a fire drill down the hall, I believe, or down the street, there's a vocational school, you'd have 2 separate procedures. So one of the things you're going to need to do is create that plan ahead of time, and then you'll be able to execute that effectively. Really, and the nice thing about this, there's flexibility with this. So you may have a procedure, and somebody said, "Hey, let's follow this." Well, you maybe not be able to get to that exact tunnel and that portion of the building that's secure because you're stuck down the road and there's a bunch of trees down and you can't get anywhere. Maybe you're immobilized. Maybe you're in an ambulance that's, you know, not able to move anywhere, but they've got communications. You're going to be able to at least communicate with those individuals. Now, again, it's ad hoc and you're going to have to adapt. Technology can do that.
Yeah, I see more of the option number 3, where, you know, it's pretty much ad hoc, and it just, you know.
Like I said, most of the scenarios that we run into, you know, this is so nowhere near, you know, the importance of what we're talking about today. But you know, I've been in a call, I'm stuck in traffic, I can't make it to the office for a video conference. Well, there's an exit right here. So I tell you what, I'm gonna get off, get on conference call, I'm good to go. Those are scenarios that are less important, but again, the whole point of technology nowadays is you're leveraging. There's laziness in it. You know, I always joke the average electronic in a home is going to give you at least 7 pounds annually, just because now I don't have to get up and change, you know, TV station or temperature. You know, I can remotely into my house at now and change temperature settings and whatnot. So a lot of those functionalities are there. When it comes to conferencing, it's no different. It's, do you want to invest more on the hardware? It makes, I mean, obviously, all 3 of these products are going to be really resilient and very flexible in terms of like how you want to use it. Some are a little more flexible than others, and not one choice is good for everybody. You might have more importance and needs for one technology offering than the other. The nice thing is this is kind of, it's flexible. And like I said, it's, as I mentioned, it's a secure, reliable, flexible option that allows you to tie this software and infrastructure that you don't need to have in-house, typically do. And this just scratches the surface. I mean, we have healthcare organizations that use all the pieces of this, and that means just not from conferencing, but content sharing, whether it's whiteboard strategies that you can take just a board, it looks like a laser light, I can shine on that, and you'll be able to see that 1,000 miles away as if you're sitting in a room. There's immersive technologies you'll hear from Cisco, or Real Presence, which Polycom has, where it looks like you're right in front of me, thousands of miles away or across the world. There's a lot of different use cases for it. It just really kind of depends on what's going to be best for you. Any other questions on anything at all?
What do you think, Mark?
So what's he trying to sell you?
My biggest uses.
Well, Mark, our EMA director, we can think of some uses, so.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, healthcare, obviously your patients kind of seem like the most easiest and important thing to identify, but there's a lot of administration things that happen. So we have a lot of colleges in the state of Ohio that, like Finley is one of them. We have a setup for them to where all their board members, they can't all be in Ohio and Finley at the same time. So they have board meetings remotely, using the same technology, same as what we're using today. Some are in their home office, some are in a boardroom. I've seen some that I could have swore they were in a clubhouse. Golf course. So,
Are there different options for video bridge as far as like
well,
levels of subscription or
so yes, and it's only by the numbers. So again, I mentioned the base price. It's usually, again, this is retail. We have special pricing, but retail is 5 seats, and that's right around I think $32.99 prices nowadays. But you're going to get all the same features regardless of numbers. It's just going to be, you'll get maybe some volume discounts based on numbers and what affiliation you are, your state terms or whatnot. But you're going to get content sharing, voice and video bridging, where you maybe just, like I said, the voice bridge where you just use cell phone calling. But there's other package deals that when you use some of the other infrastructure pieces of it, that's where you get into more feature sets aside from the bridging. Like there's a feature Polycom uses called DMA. So you might have a really secure premise where you need to host some things both in the cloud but also in your building. So a larger organization like a hospital or corporate merit, whatever, you're going to have a larger security firewalls. So you need to have technology that allows you to collaborate externally as well as internally. That's sharing content, video, and a lot of other features that are within that realm.
I'm just looking at a subscription for like obviously during disasters,
Sure.
natural disasters, what have you, they don't happen every day.
Yep, no, I agree. Yeah, so
That's why I was asking about the levels of buy-in. Is there a pay-as-you-go plan, or is it you're going to pay the whole year and never use it, or
yeah, and well, see, that's the nice thing. So you're not, if you buy this for Matt, it is more of an OpEx, right? But if, let's say, because this is so universally fit, you can buy this for mass emergency, but you use it for the year for your own conference.
sure.
Because you're gonna find a use for it, trust me.
Yeah.
But the idea is, and to answer your question, sir, is there is no specific level. Unfortunately, yeah, it's per seat. Now, the difference would be is you have an organization, let's say you have a really need to have the bridging service in-house. You can still have it in a data center and be secure, but it's more on your watch. Your organization or somebody like IQ, like us, would come in and provide that managed services. The idea is that if you use that bridging for day-to-day, you could use it, for your mass emergencies as well, and it would be more of a CapEx expenditure, so you wouldn't have to worry about paying monthly on that, because you can still use the bridging services if you have it for other use cases. But if you're buying just the BaaS piece of it, the hosted part, then yeah, it's just like anything, host it. Once you pay for it and use it, whether you use it or not, the bill's still there, annually, or you can break it up monthly.
Because I'm just looking at remotely going out and doing, say, damage assessment.
Sure.
Send somebody out with an iPad or something to basically go to an area and video back what's happening out there.
Yeah.
And you've got 15 people sitting in a room making decisions based on what they're seeing on the other end of this camera and videoing back and forth as to what are we going to do and what decisions are we going to make based on what we're seeing. In Ashland County, fortunately, that happens maybe twice a year if you're lucky, and maybe not even that if you're lucky.
Well, remember this too. So, you know how, and it sounds like you have a pretty firm understanding of bridging. So the bridging service, because it's 5 seats, that means that you can have 5 conference calls hosted at the same time. So what that means is, let's say you have, we're hosting a conference call here, I could have 15 other or 20 other people attend. I'm only using one license though. It's concurrent connections that are being hosted. Now, in that scenario, let's say you bought a license for 5, minimum license, then you can use them throughout the year for other conferencing. But if you go out in the field and you have to have multiple people report in, you wouldn't need any additional license for that. So it's mostly, think of the host as the license count. So if you have 2 or 3 people out in the field at the same time and they need to report in, they can do so over that number of 5. You know, to be able to give you that status report. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it is just like whether it's web hosting or a cell phone service. Once you pay into it, you use it. Whether you don't use it, you're still paying for it to cancel the subscription.
Now, I think the question arose here about something about, basically though, in our use would be, where we would have to manually take, the heart rate and the vitals of the person and actually communicate them
Right.
over the video, over the connection.
Right.
So the doctor on the other end would get that information and make their decision.
Yeah, and there's ways to do that. And, you can go down a rabbit hole with that conversation just because.
Well, we had it, it just never went anywhere because there's no money behind it. But this is a different situation.
Yeah. Now, like I said, the nice thing. So let's say you had a EKG that's sitting here, or you had, obviously you're getting your vitals. If you write down those vitals, now this is just a very mundane way to do it. Let's say you wrote down these vitals. Here's my BP and all the good stuff. You got to take a picture and send that from that device. Then
Yeah,
connect to
right,
video
right.
conference through content, which would be, it's encapsulated, encrypted during that particular conversation. Not that there would be any really sensitive data other than, there's some data there, it's still PHI, but if you have any information wrote down for the person. But, I think you might have some information on that. I know, like Apple, for example, right now, Apple with the new Apple Watch has vitals that it can read. I think they're doing it's John Hopkins, I think, a proof of concept with them where
Right,
basically they're allowing their patients to have a Apple Watch, get that data,
right,
post-surgery, post-op, pre-op, and the physician to be able to monitor that remotely.
right.
That's an
Right.
example.
But
So-
see, the government is probably giving a grant for that, and it wouldn't
Yeah,
apply here
absolutely.
because he's on the dole to pay for all this. But when
Yeah.
you're a doctor in an office, unless somebody's gonna pay you to monitor your equipment, nobody's gonna buy it. I mean, we
Completely
had
agree.
this equipment 15 years ago, and it went, no.
Well, and that's another thing you brought up too. It's important to think of is whatever you do, the more you buy of, the more you have to support, whether it's warranty.
No, the government didn't wanna
Hands
pay
on,
for it.
yeah.
They weren't there yet, but it sounds like they're getting there.
Like I said, since high tech's been, basically initialized by Congress in '09, that was a scratch and surface. All that, in my opinion, all I read out of that was the United States was thinking, all right, we got this technology. Everybody wants to use it. Healthcare wants to use it now. How do we enforce questions we don't have answers for? Now that some of the answers have been kind of figured out, now it's like, all right, how do you get that information out? Because you got to remember, like, you got larger metropolitan areas, like fortunately Columbus is really close to Ashland. You got Cleveland,
60
Cincinnati.
miles.
Yeah. So you've got technology sectors that people are in the know. But you have rural counties where not only do
Like
you
out in
have
the middle of Wyoming.
yeah, I mean, like scenarios where not only the technology is available, but just the know of what technology is available. getting somebody to put all the pieces together and say, hey, look, you can use it for this. It's slowly getting out of the metros. And I
No,
think
what
there's
they're
some-
offering for the stroke patients is fantastic, because I'm in the real estate business too, plus medicine, and, you know, when people wanna move to a community, that's what they wanna know, well, what kind of hospital do you have?
Sure.
Well, they can move to Ashley County now, cause you got this thing in your ER, right? Don't need to worry about it anymore. It's not a problem.
Well, with Samaritan, it's just one item, it's not,
But that's a huge item, and it kills people, and you have to have access to that drug, so.
Yeah, we've got some.
Or you're gonna be paralyzed, you know, it's a life-saving thing.
We've got some. We've got another customer that has assisted living as well as independent living campuses, and they're using
Yeah.
video conferencing just from proctoring sponsored healthcare to also you've got like Smithsonian is offering content for the arts. They're able to share that.
Yeah.
Now they're wanting. That question's come up is, well, can we?
They left my aunt between the bathroom and the toilet at a Marriott assisted living for $6,000 a month, because nobody knew she was there, and she couldn't reach the buzzer, so, yeah. That was a big lawsuit. Or it should have been.
I can imagine.
But this would have saved, you know, that was 10 years ago, 15 years ago already, so. Yeah.
Yep, it's.
We're all gonna be working for computers.
Hey, trust me. I mean,
Or not working at all.
what's the
We're
thing now?
retired in Ashley
You can
County.
get too much automation. There still needs to be some type of.
Yeah, somebody's gotta run it.
Somebody has to push enter, I guess.
Yeah,
and escape.
exactly.
okay, well,
Well, thank you.
No, I appreciate you all attending the sit down demonstration today. But if you have any questions at all,
Are you gonna be here tomorrow too with the psychiatry? Okay.
and I'm trying to trick my marketing director into getting up here as well because she has another question. She's better looking at me. She has a better way of wording things, so she'll help.
Okay.